Hello, everybody. It's Mrs. Pound, and we are studying Chapter 23, The Nervous System from BJU Biology's 4th edition. We are still in Section 23A, the structure of the nervous system. The objectives for this video are to identify two major divisions of the nervous system, list and summarize the functions of the 7 regions of the brain, and list and describe the functions of the peripheral nervous system's divisions. So let's take a look at subsection 23.2, divisions of the nervous system. The first division is the central nervous system, and the CNS, includes the brain and the spinal cord. The other part is the peripheral nervous system, the PNS, and this is the remainder of the nervous system that carries information between the CNS and the rest of the body. So all the blue over here is the PNS, peripheral nervous system. We can remember peripheral because you can see off to the side, that we call that our peripheral vision. We also call the things that we attach to computers peripherals, things like monitors, printers, a mouse, all those kinds of things. Now, let's first focus on the coverings of the central nervous system. So, coverings are called meninges, and there are 3 protective coverings of the central nervous system. The first is the dura mater, and this is the outermost layer that is thick and tough. So in this diagram, it's this kind of purplish layer, and dura sounds like durable, tough, and mater actually means mother. There's the arachnoid layer right here, and we can see that it's the middle layer and it's thin, delicate, and cobweb-like. We can see those cobwebs in there. That's why it's called arachnoid, like spiders. There's the pia mater, and this is down here, the bottommost layer, and this is called the tender mother, is what it means in Latin. Now, there's also the cerebrospinal fluid, cerebro for brain, spinal for the spinal cord. This is fluid between the arachnoid and the pia mater. And so it's in both the brain and the spinal cord. That's why it's called cerebrospinal. Now let's focus on the brain. So the first part of the brain is the cerebrum. This is the largest part of the brain divided into 2 hemispheres, probably what is most familiar to us. There is inside the brain white matter. This is the deeper tissue of the brain. You can see here, the white matter is this lighter color. We're going to talk about here in a minute, the gray matter, and that is this darker color. The cerebral cortex, the outer part of the brain, is the outer gray matter part of the brain, and it controls conscious actions. So that outer gray part. So there's the gray matter and there's the white matter. And if we were to look at a brain that's not dissected, we would just see the gray matter. There's the frontal lobe. This is the reasoning, planning, memorizing, verbal communication, and voluntary movement part of the brain. And that is this very front part right here. And it's actually the last to develop in us as well into like our late teens and early 20s. There's the parietal lobe. This is responsible for sensations of pain, pressure, touch, and temperature, kind of in the middle. Then there's the occipital lobe. This is the vision and memory of objects and symbols part of the brain, and that's back here. The temporal lobe is responsible for hearing, smell, pronunciation of words, and melodies of song, and sight and sound memories, and that's towards the bottom. Now, inside the brain, deep inside, is the thalamus. It decides which impulses are important enough to be relayed to the parietal lobe. And see the thalamus in here, its name actually means inner chamber. Below it is the hypothalamus. Hypo actually means under, And the hypothalamus controls many involuntary activities, and it controls the pituitary gland, which we're going to study when we study about hormones in the endocrine system. There's also the medulla oblongata right here, which is part of the brain stem, the bottom part of the brain, and it relays nerve impulses between the spinal cord and the brain. And then there's the cerebellum. This part under here is the second largest part of the brain, and it's in charge of coordination. Then, not part of the brain, but which attaches the brain to the peripheral nervous system, is the spinal cord, and it relays messages between the peripheral parts of the body and the brain. Now, let's take a look at the peripheral nervous system since we've looked at the central nervous system. So there are two divisions to the peripheral nervous system. There's the somatic nervous system, which controls voluntary nervous system movements. So voluntary nervous system, it means that we have control. We can think about what this part of the system is doing. And then there's the autonomic nervous system, and this functions automatically without conscious control. This is important for things like your heartbeat, breathing, uh, digestion, all those things that we really don't want to think about and use our brain power to think about because we have other things to think about. Now, it also includes 12 pairs of cranial nerves. And these cranial nerves mainly are nerves to the face and neck. And we can see some of them, like olfactory, that's for the nose. Okay. Optic nerve for the eyes. Facial nerve goes to the face. And so some of them tell you what they actually do. I don't know what they all do. Two divisions of the autonomic nervous system are the sympathetic and parasympathetic systems. The sympathetic system gets the body ready for major strenuous activity. This is the fight or flight system, and it has to act fast. It's quick. So we can remember that sympathetic is a shorter word, it's quicker to say. So we're getting ready to do something quick. We're either getting ready to fight quick or run fast. The parasympathetic system relaxes the body. This is the rest and digest part of the system where we're just relaxing. We can digest our food. We're just peaceful. It calms everything down. Now, some diseases and disorders. The first one is multiple sclerosis. Maybe you've heard of somebody who has MS, usually is what we call it for short. Uh, this is deterioration of myelin sheaths of nerves and of tissue in the brain and spinal cord. So we can see a healthy neuron over here with an intact myelin sheath, and over here is a damaged myelin sheath where it's broken up. And so what happens is just the signals don't go as quickly down and uh, just it's like it's being short circuited. And so it causes problems with movement, okay, and that type of thing. Encephalitis is inflammation of the brain. Usually, the brain does not just inflame by itself, it's usually caused by, say, a virus or a bacteria. Cerebral palsy. This is a type of paralysis resulting from improper brain development or damage to the brain before birth. And so there are different types of cerebral palsy depending upon what part of the brain is actually damaged. And maybe you know somebody with cerebral palsy. They might have a hard time moving like a part of their body, or it might be a little more difficult for them to talk and do different things. Then there is epilepsy. These are attacks of abnormal brain activity. This is when somebody will have a seizure. Now, not all seizures are caused by epilepsy, but epilepsy can cause seizures. And then there's hydrocephalus. This is water on the brain or excessive cerebral spinal fluid. In children, this can cause brain damage, and it can also, if a child has hydrocephalus, it can deform their skull so that they have a bigger skull and a bigger looking head. So, our objectives were to identify two major divisions of the nervous system, list and summarize the functions of the seven regions of the brain, and list and describe the functions of the peripheral nervous system's divisions. Don't forget your 5 questions in the margins and keep watching to answer the questions at the end.